listening to Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where two friends talk about a new romance novel each week. This week we're talking about A Shade of Vampire by Bella Forrest. Buckle up, it's quite a ride.
All right.
Okay. All right, everyone. Erin has had a week. And meanwhile, I'm in the final 4 days of my son being across the world with his grandparents. And so I've basically had a staycation of a lifetime. I've been drinking with friends.
Yeah, okay. That's good. Because I thought you were going to be like, my son is gone. And I was going to be like, poor fucking you.
No. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I definitely have my moments where I like tear up and can't figure my life out, right?
Of course.
But
yeah,
it's also nice to be a human person without him and actually know what not being tired is like, because I didn't realize just how exhausted I was. And this week I got a haircut, and it's almost like a Sydney Waverly haircut, you know?
Like, oh, it's nice. You know what? I didn't see the end of your hair until you kind of sat up just now. That's nice.
Yeah, right? And this is after being slept on. I've still got the natural mermaid wave, even after sleep.
Yeah, you do.
I'm telling you, it's the best.
Yeah, you do.
And the haircut, I feel like, really got me through the book we're going to talk about today.
So you were reading this thing and you were thinking, I look real good, though.
Yeah, I was like, the world isn't terrible.
Oh, man. All right. So we read.
And I also had to ban Erin from texting me because I wanted the podcast to be fresh.
Well, here's what happened is I was awake at 3 a.m. here in Alaska. Like the one night I got to spend in Alaska this week, which is saying something in October in Alaska that you're like, please, one night, let me spend in this dark, rainy, cold. And I couldn't sleep because I was like jet lagged and stressed. It was 3 a.m. in Alaska, and it was 7 a.m. in New York City. So I was like, Melody, talk to me about Shades of Vampires. I think it's A Shade of Vampire. We read
A Shade of Vampire.
Let's do this professionally. A Shade of Vampire by I know what her name is. It's Bella Forrest.
Which is
it's not a name. It's not a name. I was like, oh no. But the thing is, you chose this one. I'm going to dime you out. But because it's extremely popular and has a lot of great reviews.
Yes. And I need to tell you the journey to my choosing this book, because
please do.
Something has happened to me since starting the podcast. I used to get balanced Facebook advertisements, but now all of them seem to be not just romance novels, but like YA romance novels, which I wasn't prepared for because I don't read a lot of YA. So I saw this, and it was I actually, if you recall, I sent it to you as a joke. I screenshotted all of it because I was like, oh my God, look at what Facebook is doing to me. It said it's the Twilight fix. And I was like, oh, you mean there's going to be less stalking and more sex between hot vampires and like young, foxy ladies? Excellent. That sounds like a great fix. However, it is the opposite. There is more stalking and false imprisonment and lots of
Physical abuse
is a great way to put it. There's some assaults of different sorts, and no sex at all. And actually, very contrary to my normal wants and needs, which I
was so happy.
Which I communicate unabashedly. Happy. I have never, ever been more thankful that there was no sex in the novel. Holy balls.
I did not want
No. Every time they got even close to each other, I was like, back away, everybody.
Get away from him.
Yeah, it was really bad. Oh, God. But people
Listener,
like it.
If you're out there, if you could only see Melody's like back away dance. It had jazz hands. It had shoulders.
There was a shimmy.
There really was. Okay.
So I did this to us, and I'm sorry, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. I know that this is going to be one long Melody Carlisle consent rant.
Oh, there might be sirens.
I just...
Wee-oo, wee-oo.
I was like, what do you even mean by that?
Ready. Listener, I promise I won't do that.
Sirens.
No, I can't promise I won't do that. Please don't turn us off.
I was thinking of sirens in like the paranormal romance way. And I'm like, you're going to get up on the cliffs and like sing me into certain death as a sailor. Okay. So because of that, I just want to get on my soapbox for like just a sec.
Okay.
Because this is what upsets me about this
Once
one.
again, we're very different people.
Right. And I think this is just universally an upsetting book, but I understand that some adult women will read like some conglomeration of BDSM style, maybe rape fantasy. Fine. Like I'm not trying to shame anyone's like what gets their rocks off in like the comfort of their own home. That's fine. If you want to read a rape fantasy, more power to you. Do whatever you want to do.
We are not here to be like that at all.
No one likes being abused. No one likes being sexually assaulted, of course. But some people like reading about it or acting it out with their partners.
And actually, I was just reading. I'm sorry to push you off of your soapbox for a minute.
Interrupt my soapbox.
I'm sorry. But I was just reading this really great article with Dan Savage because he's coming out with a new podcast called Hot Mic, where he talks to people about like their actual sexual preferences or experiences. And it was really cool because a lot of times women will write into him and be like, I'm a feminist, but I like to be spanked and called a slut and like all the things in bed. And I don't know how to put the two things together. And I very much agree with Dan that like your politics and your sexual preferences do not have to line up as long as it's in a totally safe space where everybody knows what the score is. Like, we are not here to shame you for your rape fantasy or your spanking love or your rough sex or whatever you like to do with consenting adults. That, however, is not what fucking happens here.
So, well, okay. So I want to put a period on that. Like, I understand that exists in the world, and I understand the reason why sometimes books read this way is for that particular sort of fantasy. But here's my soapbox, is why every time I pick up a young adult or teenage romance, is it this shit? Like, why every time? Why can I not find something for teenage girls or young women that isn't a fucking imprisonment, abusive, like a classic cycle of abuse? And the heroine is always... one prerequisite is non-eating. She must never eat. So Melody's trying so hard not to interrupt me right now. She's literally shaking with two hands over her mouth and raising the roof. Now she's raising the roof. But like, why is it always the young adult books that are like this? Is what just upsets me to my core every time. Is this what we're feeding teenage girls because this is all they're eating? Or is this like just what society is feeding teenage girls? Like, I want to know if it's chicken or egg. Like, is this just all they're reading because that's all we're supplying? Or is this all they're demanding, so this is all people are writing? I don't know.
I don't know, but it is fucking upsetting because it's one thing to read this as an adult human who has interacted with romantic partners and has seen some things and has decided on her boundaries, right? And it's another thing to read this as a 16-year-old wondering what a romantic relationship is supposed to be like. This is alarming. And between the idyllic fantasy that is so prevalent in YA, the man only likes the woman because of this mysterious, mystical thing that is her, and like she has to be special in order for him to give her attention. And then just the rampant, abusive nonsense that is then read as normal or the
Romantic.
ideal, that is read as romance, holy balls. I kind of don't know what to do with myself.
So I just, before we even started, I just wanted to get that out. I want to get that question out there because if you are our one listener and you have the answer to this problem, because I made the mistake of reading some of the reviews for this. So I like halfway through, I was like, this is fucking drivel. I'm going to go look at the Goodreads reviews and see if there's other adult people that think this is stupid. And it was all these teenage girls that were just like, Derek. And I'm like, what like, I got so upset. Like, I had to stop reading for the night.
It's
I was
alarming.
so upset by the reviews. All right, so let's go through this thing. I'm sure people are really excited to hear us talk about this book now.
If you like Melody Tirades TM, buckle up, Buttercup. No, I'll try to control myself.
Wait, you were saying trademark, but I was thinking Melody Tirades, that's MT. Like,
Oh, that's fun.
Okay. So what we have here is a vampire book. Melody, do you like a vampire? Are you into?
I am into a vampire.
You like a vampire?
I like the danger. I love the mystique. I love the line that has to be walked between savagery, because the one sexual partner is usually food as well as a source of connection and gratification. I like a lot of it. Yeah.
I have to tell you, I'll read a vampire book, but I like a werewolf a lot more than I like a vampire.
those too.
And here's why. Werewolves are warm and vampires are cold.
So I have to forget that part of the lore. I have to totally forget it, because otherwise I don't think that's hot at all.
No, yeah. I don't want to snuggle up to an ice cube, like somebody who literally feels like a corpse. And like it's kind of like my aversion to historicals. Like I can't get over that. I can't get over the idea of having sex with somebody who's ice cold.
I just block that out of my brain.
Oh, maybe then. But then even when you get rid of that, like you still have like a pale old man. Like I don't know. I'll read it. I just, anytime there's like a vampire or a werewolf, I'm always team werewolf.
Okay, I hear that. The only thing for me is that you've got a wealth of wisdom and experience, Erin, in like a 21-year-old's body. I mean, what's not cool about that, you know?
I am to an age now, and that age is 31, where I no longer am like, a 21-year-old body. Like, I'm like, ugh, like, smells like Cool Ranch Doritos.
But that's
a lot of binge
because
drinking.
They don't have any experience. I don't want a 21-year-old brain, but you give me some 21-year-old pecs? Sure. Gotcha.
All right.
Cool Ranch
Start
Doritos.
going through this. Wait, you want them to smell like
no. I just, that image really, it just evoked so much truth and
lust.
None lust. No lust. Do not misrepresent me like that, madam. Okay, so we gotta focus. Focus because we gotta get through this bullshit.
So, all right. So we've got Sophia Claremont, who is we'll say heroine, but that's a pretty loose term for her. She starts out by telling us what her childhood was like. She had a mom who she calls by her first name. I don't know why. Who, when her dad would leave on business trips, would lock her in a closet for days on end, and she would try to like claw her way out and injure her hands.
To be fair, it doesn't really sound like that woman deserved the honorific that is mom.
Sure. But I just needed that sentence because for a while I was like, is this a step
Totally.
mom?
I was
like,
wondering if it was a step monster. But no, that was her.
Her name is Camilla. And then dad eventually is like, hey, Sophia, Camilla's crazy now, so she leaves forever. And then dad just kind of like slowly leaves forever too. I assume that this would be part of the later plot of the book. The answer to that is it's not. It literally never comes up again. There are 47 of these books, so I'm sure at some point Ms. Forrest, not her name, does something with this. And we should say that we read, or at least I read, the 2015 expanded edition.
I did too.
Did you read
it? I did too.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know what the expansion was, but I could have probably done without it, whatever whatever it was. Okay, so then Sophia goes and lives with her friend's family, her friend Ben. And so she has lived with them since she was like, I don't know, 8 or something like that, 12, I don't know. And her best friend, Ben, is now a sexy football sex kitten. I don't know. Not kitten. Kitten was the wrong word.
Kitten is a thing that you said. I like it. Ben's a sexy sex kitten. I'm going to do it. But he probably, he benches 140 pounds, if not more. Yeah. He's like the guy. All the ladies
Is 140 a lot?
Know, man.
Is that a lot to bench? Bro. I feel like that's really low.
That's why I put the at least in there, because I'm showing my ignorance. But meh, I don't care. 250. Sure. Okay. I mean, he's also a teenage boy, but he has a sensitive side as well, of course.
God. So this thing opens up where she's at a football game. Sophia suffers from a mysterious mental illness no one can explain that has to do with anxiety and sensory overload. I liked that they tried to like give us a heroine with some kind of mental illness. Like, I like the idea of that.
I do too.
But Melody is looking like she's going to vomit. And the reason why is it's handled just so
because
poorly.
Because it's ham-handed. That's why. I love the idea. I love the premise. This is not the way to handle it.
She only has it when it's convenient for the book. And she only has it really when it's convenient for her. Like, when it would be really, really, uncool or unsexy to have this
she's totally fine.
Thing going on with her, she's fine. And during times in the book where I'm like, why are you not having a panic attack right now? She's cool as a cucumber. And then anytime she needs to be like rescued in a damsel in distress sort of way, all of a sudden she's having a panic attack. And it's also very, very easily like she just snaps right out of it. And she's like, oh, I'm good now. Usually because of a man.
Yes.
So
because Ben and his magic whispered words, which really, as soon as he spoke those words into being, I physically recoiled.
Here's what happens is he's playing football and she starts having a panic attack because there's so much football things going on.
Streamers are like very
noises and smells. Yeah. And he sees that she's like crouched down having a panic attack in the stands.
In the middle of a huddle, 50 goddamn yards away, out of his peripheral vision while wearing a helmet. He's like, oh,
Melody.
Sophia needs me. Ha-cha-cha.
He is her best friend, Melody.
You're my best friend. I don't expect that bullshit from you.
I can tell when you're sad from over here.
It's true.
I sense it. I think Melody's in trouble in New York City, and then I just go about my day. That's why you don't get a call.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That makes sense.
Anyway, so he runs over to her and he speaks these magic words that every time Ben says this to Sophia, she's like, all right, yeah, I'm going to stop having my panic attack right now. And those words are...
and by the way, listener, he came up with this very mature assholic phrase at 12 years old out of frustration. Yeah. This is how articulate Ben has always been. So go ahead, Aaron.
I'm going to read the whole thing.
Do it.
Okay. He frowned at me, a look of deep disapproval marring his handsome features. His face, now only a few inches from my own, his blue eyes bored into me. Quote, I know an excuse when I hear one. Don't you dare deceive yourself into believing that you are the victim, Sophia Claremont. Almost as soon as Ben spoke these words he had spoken to me many times before, a wave of relief rushed over me. His strong hands gripped my elbows as he pulled me up and sat me back down in my chair. Quote, you're going to be all right, he said, his voice still firm. And I nodded.
Yeah. Obvi.
And then she's fine.
Here's my other everyone. I have a little pet peeve that came out with this, and this is why I physically recoiled. Because one of my long-standing pet peeves is the way that we vilify the role of victim while like lifting up the survivor status. And we give people very few resources to get from victim to survivor status, especially in a culture where we look at therapy as something weak people do. And we look at mental illness as something that is made up in people's brains. It drives me bonkers when people are like, do not play the victim. Like, you know what? Bitch was locked in closets for a really long time and probably hasn't seen a counselor about it. So mayhaps she is still in a place where she's dealing with that nonsense, and that doesn't make her weak, and it doesn't make her bad, and it doesn't make her a goddamn inconvenience. Like, and the
disapproval with disapproval in his eyes.
That works, and she's just like, Ben, you've spoken the magic abracadabra words, and I'm hereby fabulous again. Just like, fuck everything.
Yeah, and honestly, like, say that these words were great words. Say he thought of something like real good and clever to say to her that really did like snap her out of the thing that wasn't this drivel. Can't she remember it? Like, he's been saying it to her like on the daily since she's like 17. Like, she really needs him to like drop his football and like run off the field to whisper it to her. Like, it made no sense to me. And then also, like, say, okay, fine if this is going to be the plot, but I'm sorry, this is just a direct criticism of the writing. You couldn't think of anything less clunky than, I know an excuse when I hear one, don't you dare deceive yourself into believing that you're the victim. This was
authored by a 12-year-old.
Part of my problem with this book.
Like, he said it as a 12-year-old.
Yeah, but Bella fucking Swan, what is her name? Forrest. Bella Forrest is, I don't know, also a 12-year-old maybe. I'm sorry, Bella, if you're out there. We know you tried to write. I'm sorry.
You know what? We haven't read the rest of the 47, and I have not attempted to write a novel of any sort. So yeah, we commend you for
trying
your efforts.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just so clunky. And there was, her inner monologue was very like weird for a 17-year-old girl. I thought, like, I remember at the beginning reading a sentence that I remember that was, football was never my most favorite of games.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's 17. It's like, just say football wasn't, I don't like football. Mm-hmm. Football wasn't my fave.
Sure.
Like, it's not hard. Just write a sentence that doesn't have 6 ofs in it. I'm sorry. It is hard. It is hard to do. I apologize.
And this is a debut novel, so we don't know how she has evolved as a writer.
This could be literally a 16-year-old girl. I don't know. Yes. So I don't be an asshole. Okay.
All right. We got to start moving.
So football game is over.
Then they go on vacay.
Then they go on vacay to Cancun. Sophia has a plan that when they're in Cancun, she's finally going to tell Ben she loves him forever, which is a difficult thing because she's grown up with Ben in her household. She will continue to have Ben in her household. So if this doesn't work out and it's weird, it's going to blow up in her face, which was believable and fine.
Yeah, and also if it does work out, it's going to be fucking weird. So
yeah. I mean, she's in a weird position here that I believed and understood.
And I like that she's still going to do it.
Yeah.
She's not just going to stew in her personal misery. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's her birthday when they're in Cancun. So she's decided, oh no, she doesn't tell him on her birthday. So she's going to tell him like the first night or whatever. First night in Cancun, guess what? She can't eat. She can't do it. She gets the smallest thing on the menu because she's so excited about Cancun and she's so nervous. This happens every time. This woman literally, I counted how many times she ate during the months of this book, and the answer was once. I know that she made pancakes, but I do not know if she ate them.
Well, and the girls made breakfast at some point. All of the hostages.
That was the pancakes.
Oh, was that it? I thought there was another. Mm-hmm. Well, no, and she cooked with him by themselves too, right?
Oh no, yeah, but you know what she had? Dry toast.
Fuck. Okay. Can I just say, and I know if you want to write in and tell us that your appetite dies when you're nervous or whatever, I have never in my life been averse to food for any emotional reason. If anything, I swing the other direction.
Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm. In fact, I had a friend who I work with. I have a pretty stressful job, and he would go home and he would be like, I've been going home and drinking like 5 beers after work every day. Do you think that's, and like, do you want to go have a beer? Like he would constantly be like, oh, I can't wait to get a beer. And I was just never like that. And he was like, what's your problem? Like, that you don't want to go home and have a beer. Like, what is your problem? Like, I want to go home and have a cake.
Yes.
That is my problem.
Yep.
Like, I want to go home and eat an entire jar of Nutella with a spoon. That's my vice. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So she's on the beach. She's going to do a long walk on the beach and tell him that she loves him. It's going pretty well. She's about halfway through her speech, and Ben's ex-girlfriend, some blonde
she does the
bombshell,
Baywatch
just happens.
run up to them.
Yeah.
Ben, she says, look at my titties bounce. Ben. She's literally wearing a bikini.
Happens to be in Cancun with her parents, and she's like, oh my God, Ben, you're in Cancun too? Do you want to go on a trip with us for like 3 days? And he's like, Sophia, I'm gonna let you finish. No, he doesn't even let her
he's
finish.
like, can I
he's just like,
peace out? I'm gonna go.
Yeah, he's just like, zoom, and goes with this other girl for 3 days to hook up on her scuba trip. Meanwhile, it's going to be Sophia's birthday, so she has to spend her birthday with like the rest of Ben's family. No Ben. She's very upset. So she goes to bed on the night of her birthday. Very sad. And this is like quibbling, honestly, about logistics.
Oh boy.
But when she gets up, so she goes to sleep. It chronicles the night of her like waking up, going back to sleep, tossing and turning, that kind of thing. Like she talks about having bad dreams or whatever. And then she wakes up to like Ben whispering in her ear and being like, I'm so sorry I missed your birthday. I completely forgot. I came home as soon as I realized. And she's like pissed. And she throws the covers off and she gets out of bed and she walks to the balcony.
I'm sorry.
And then the line
you
is
worried about the fact that she's wearing her bathing suit in bed?
She went to sleep in her bikini. I'm glad you're worried about this too. Yeah. There's just a sentence that goes, I was still in my bikini. And I'm like, from what? From sleeping? Because she went to bed at like 10 p.m. It's not like this was a planned bedtime as far as I know. She didn't like fall asleep out of nowhere.
And let's all recall how pervasive sand can become in your mucous membrane parts. It's uncomfy.
Let's talk about having because she alludes to the fact that it was wet at one time because she's like dry now. And I'm like, you went to bed in a wet bikini? Have you heard of yeast infections, you 17-year-old idiot? Like, have you? I'm sorry, Camilla, I was going to say, did your mother not teach you about yeast infections? But you know what? Camilla probably didn't. And this is another symptom of her abuse. I shouldn't be making fun of her. But
here we are.
Yeah. And then later in the book, at some point, somebody gives her a pair of jeans, which is a big deal later in the book because she only wears evening gowns. And she was like, as if I would sleep in jeans anyway. And I'm like, bitch, you sleep in bikinis? Like, I have no gauge for what you sleep in.
You would not.
Okay, so she Ben's like, please. He's like pleading with her, like, be my friend. She's like so upset. She goes running down the beach as fast as she can. She runs for miles because she's a, skinny athlete.
She says with derision.
Yeah, I don't know. Can we get somebody with a little meat on their bones in a young adult novel? That's all I want. But anyway, so she encounters a sexy vampire on the beach who's beautiful and cheekbones and eyes and all of that.
But also makes her whole skin crawl.
Well, because he's a strange man on the beach. And he's all like, what's your name? And, all that kind of stuff. And she's like, I don't like you. I'm going to run the other direction. I don't want to tell you my name. And then he puts, I believe, a needle into her neck.
Yeah, so he sees, because let's review. Not only has she gone to bed in a bikini, but she's also gone to bed with a badge pinned on said bikini that says like Happy 17th. It's like a birthday girl pin.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
That he looks down at knowingly, and he's like, you're the perfect morsel. And he sedates her, and then she wakes up in a dungeon. A literal dungeon.
She's chained to a wall with some cuffs and stuff. And she wakes up, and that vampire eventually materializes, and he does some abuse on her, pins her against a wall, licks her neck, grabs her boobs, all that kind of stuff. She's still in the bikini. Hot. It's cold. It's not hot. And I was just like, if this is our fucking hero, I swear to God, I swear to God, I will. Yeah, because he's just like straight up like sexually assaulting her I mean, with boob grabs, but, you know, I don't want you guys to think, oh, I know. Believe me, I know. I just didn't want anyone to think it was like a full-on situation.
Has a hard job.
So I'm like, Melody, do not tell me what the definition of sexual assault is. Anyway, sorry, I've had a hard week. So he throws her up against a wall. I think she hits her head pretty hard, like it's bad. And fortunately, he's not our hero. He is the brother of our hero. He is our villain.
Sort of, if you can pin one villain down.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I was so relieved to find out he wasn't our hero. And then I was like, our hero's really not really better. But anyway, he's like, you know, I want her for myself. I want her for my harem because she's so lovely. And then a female vampire materializes.
Something about her. Something that you can't nail down. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah. She smells super good, which the things that are just ripped out of Twilight or ripped out of the Southern Vampire Mysteries, you know, the Sookie Stackhouse True Blood novels is a lot. And one of them is that her blood smells great. Anyway, so the sister materializes. They have a conversation about how this particular girl, Sophia, is here for Derek. She's not here for Lucas. And then they have this exchange that's like Vivian, who's the female vampire, who we find out they're all siblings, Lucas, Derek, and Vivian. Vivian's like, this is for Derek when he wakes up. And Lucas is like, he's never gonna wake up. He's never going to wake up. Why do you even say that? And then, like, there's no complications with him waking. Like, I don't understand why they have this conversation. So then, so she has knowledge now that she's part of a harem for a vampire named Derek. They drag her out to a spa.
Well, first, they go by a bunch of more dungeons to pick out the ripest fruit from the slaves that are cowering in the corner. So they pick out the most beautiful young girls who are like 17 with flowing locks and hips for days and all the things. And then they take them to a spa where other humans prep them to join a meat train. I don't know. To become part of Derek's
So they
harem.
go to the spa. So okay, what they say happens at this spa is they get baths, which is important because they've been in stinky dungeons. They get massages, they get pedicures, they get facials, and then they get evening gowns.
Yep.
Which I don't...
Atop sexy
I don't
lingerie.
know why... The only things you actually need to do are hair and makeup here. So I don't know why they gave him a massage, a pedicure, and a facial. I'm like, do they just have dripping wet hair and no makeup on? Is that, which is fine, but that doesn't really seem like the look the author is going for here.
Well, and
anyway.
It also goes completely counter to the philosophy behind how to treat humans and what humans are for. I don't understand why you give them the pampering massage when all you need them to do is look good and taste good. That doesn't make any sense. Like, you're not special. You're still food and slave.
Right.
So this part didn't make any sense to me.
Right. I agree. So they put her in some kind of like silky evening gown. She's like, oh, I look really sexy, which is not the thought that you're supposed to have when you're, I don't know. I guess if I looked really sexy, I would notice too. But I mean, mostly fear that you're about to be devoured by a vampire,
in her defense,
I assume.
she is still trembling throughout and not in a nice way.
No. And in her defense, she is 17. So she probably has to really take notice every time she looks good.
So she and her mermaid hair and the rest of the ladies go into this crypt of a vampire who we learn has been sleeping for 400 years.
I don't remember what it's called. There's all
It's a sanctuary, I think.
Right. Sanctuary. There's all these things that are named like the catacombs, the sanctuary. Like every place here has like a name that I just refused to. I was going to write them all down and then I was like, no, it's 4 a.m. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, when we record this thing, it's like 4 in the fucking morning in Alaska.
I want everyone to know how dedicated Erin is to this and you and us and our endeavor, because the past 2 weeks it's been 4 and 5 in the morning that she has woken her ass up in Alaska and then been charming.
So early. And it is like the darkness has descended in Alaska. So I'm like looking outside at the pitch dark and I'm just like, the sun's not going to come up for another 3 hours here.
Much like where she is, the shade.
The shade.
Because.
So that's where she's been taken. Spoiler alert is the shade.
We learn that it's this vampire refuge where a witch long ago banished the sun from shining and it is eternal night. And
we're about to get to that witch.
Well, no, we're about to get to the witch's descendant, bruh.
Right. So, okay. So then we switch point of views. This is a point of view book where we're switching to, it's written in the first person from Sophia's point of view, and then it switches to Derek Novak's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Novak is our sexy hero vampire.
Still not convinced, but okay. Yep. For all intents and purposes, sexy hero.
Yeah. So his name's Derek. This is one of the things that I was texting with Melody about at 3 a.m. earlier this week, that I was like, he's 400 years old. He says he was turned in like the, I guess, early 17th century. So it's 1615.
Yeah, 15 or 1600.
And his name is Derek. Like, we're really going to think that. Really? And I was like typing. I was so mad. I was like, just a farmer in 1615 or 15, whatever, named his kid fucking Derek. Like, we're supposed to believe that. And then Melody, this bitch, sends me a Wikipedia article about the name Derek, saying that it originated in the name
Dodrick.
I don't know. Yeah, whatever. And she's like, they're probably just updating it for the times. And
I was throwing a bitch a bone, okay? Bella Forrest needs all the credibility she can get, okay?
I was so
she was
tired
so mad at
and
me,
angry
guys.
That she shut me down. I just went.
She goes,
I was like, oh, fuck off.
And I heard it just like that. I read it and I was like, you should go to bed.
I was like, fuck off. This author just likes the name Derek for some kind of reason.
No, you're right. And then
Melody was like, but this is probably why it got past the editors. And I was like, fuck you, editors. Like, this book didn't have fucking editors, which it probably did. I just like to think that it didn't.
Totally.
All right. So Derek Novak. And also I went to, when I did my basic training for the Army, since my last name is McCarthy, I sat next to a Novak who's fine. There's nothing wrong with Novak. I like Novak, but like, it's just, anyway. Okay, so
we're in the sanctuary.
Okay.
She gets marched in with the rest
We're
of
in the sanctuary.
slaves in their evening gowns
Right.
and sexiness. And they wake Derek with no problem, and he's a little bit befuddled, and he's like, who are you, witch? You're not Cora. Go get me Cora. And she's like,
oh yeah, that was part of it to me. It's like, he's 400, but his first person narrative is like, sup, yo. Like, it's the same as hers. And hers is a little weird for her age, but his is real weird for his age. Like, he's using all kinds of words that weren't around when he went to sleep. And also, riddle me this, Mel. Why did he go to sleep for 400 years and his brother and sister didn't?
because
I'm
he's
still
overwhelmed. Because he, unlike every other vampire there, is an emotional vampire with a conscience, and he can't deal with the savagery of his kind, and so he escaped into dreamland.
Okay, all right, okay, fine. Why are they waking him up now?
Because Vivian, we sort of learn later, has premonitions very akin to that sister in Twilight.
That's it? She had a premonition that he ought to wake up today?
Yeah, because the hunters are
honestly missed it.
strong. There's a faction of humans who are hunters.
Oh yeah, there's some vampire
and they're
hunters.
coming
Yeah,
after everyone, and they're learning where the shade is, and it's blah.
sure. Okay, this brings me to another. This is grammar time with Erin. Hello, good morning.
Welcome.
This is the first time the author uses Lucas in the possessive. I'm sorry. The look on your face. And she makes Lucas, the name Lucas, possessive by saying Lucas apostrophe, which is wrong. If you're listening to this, that is wrong. Get ye a strunken white. That is not correct. If you have a name, and actually the example I remember because I have an illustrated Elements of Style book, that the example they use is Jesus's. and they spell it J-E-S-U-S apostrophe
That's
S.
correct.
If you have a name that ends in S, you don't make it a plural possessive. You just add another apostrophe S like you would any other name, Bella.
Mic drop.
Quote unquote editors. Anyway, all right.
Erin's out.
She does that throughout. And mic drop. Okay, so sorry that I had to take 20 seconds of your time for that. All right, so they line up these slave girls, this harem, in front of Derek. They explain to him that what they do now here in the Shade is they go and capture humans from Earth. I don't know. Is the Shade on Earth? Like, what is it? Is it a regular island that is obscured Wonder Woman style?
Well, because
like
witches, remember?
Right, I know, but like anyway, so they get humans from human world, and then they bring them back, and then the youngest and most loveliest they make into harem girls, and then when they turn 18, which implies to me that all of them are under 18.
Oh yes.
When they turn 18, their blood sweetens. I don't know, I assume because of American consent laws, their blood sweetens. And then the owner of those particular slave harem girls get 1 year to decide whether they're going to murder them or keep them forever.
No,
Is that right?
17 to 18, you have to keep them, and you can do with them what you will. You can fuck them against their will. You can torture them. You can, they're yours. Sure. Like regular
they are
slaves.
yours.
Just, run of the mill slaves. But then when they're 18, then you can truly do with them what you want. You can suck them dry,
so
and
18,
it's no problem.
Right, because their blood sweetens.
I guess.
Because why not?
I didn't really get this part. I just sort of skipped over it.
These rules are so arbitrary. Like, if you're just going to have slaves and do whatever you want with them and chain them up in the dungeons, like, why do they make up arbitrary rules for themselves? It makes no sense. You have a limitless supply of 17-year-old girls in Cancun.
No, because society and social contract, Erin. That's why. When you make your own society, you put in arbitrary rules, and then you make people follow them.
Okay, all right. So she's standing there in front of Derek. This is the first time she describes herself as a lamb, because of course.
She's a lamb, and he's a lion.
She's a lamb for the slaughter, because why not? In case you're wondering, there's also a lot of chess metaphors, because of course. He plays the piano, because of course. Like, I just feel like this was fan fiction. Yeah. Brr. Yes?
No, I forgot. Go ahead.
Okay. Don't cut that. I love your face. It's so cute.
They can't see my face, Erin.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, but don't cut it, because if they could.
All right. Keep moving. Let's keep moving.
Okay. So he wakes up. He's very hungry. And he had a problem, apparently, with being too hungry and just tearing women to shreds.
I remember this, too. This is what I was about to say, because this is pulled straight from Vampire Diaries with what's his nuts.
Oh, I don't know Vampire Diaries.
Bruh.
So I highlighted all the things that were pulled straight from either Twilight or Sookie. But
yeah, so him being like a savage beast is pulled straight from Vampire Diaries, because in Vampire Diaries, what the hell is his name? I think it starts with an S. Stefan. I don't know.
That sounds sexy.
Yeah, not really for a minute. He's also the vampire with a conscience. He's the one who first starts dating the tall one who's now in movies. Nina Dobrev.
I see.
FYI, she's really fun on Instagram. Okay, keep moving.
So he sees all these trembling, scared girls. I think there are 8 of them. They're all 17, and they're all really, really scared. And he sees Sophia not having a panic attack, cool as a cucumber.
Totally in it to win it. She's just
totally
standing
fine.
there with all of her
She's
faculties.
good to go. Knowing that he's about to eat them, and she takes the hand of another girl.
To
and for some reason,
the other girl, because once again, she has the wherewithal not only to be worried about her own sensory issues, but also the care and comfort of someone standing next to her. Okay,
which is a nice gesture, fine. But if you're gonna write a character where she's just like this anxiety-ridden, unable to function sometimes because of anxiety, and we're going to put her in this situation, and she's the one that's like, calm down, Gwen.
Right.
Which is the girl's name. So anyway, so this makes him fall in love with her because she's so sweet. And so because he's fallen in love with her for being so sweet, he attacks her and pins her up against a marble pillar, slams her head into the wall, and nearly eats her. And Sophia...
But don't worry, Ben inadvertently saves the day again. Ben.
Sophia, while Derek is about to eat her neck.
While in excruciating pain because she has near spinal fractures. Remember.
Yeah, and she has a head wound.
The other thing that doesn't make any fucking sense is that they say later that because he's been sleeping this whole time, he has absorbed the strength of the magics of the shades, and he's really the strongest vampire on Earth. Meanwhile, he doesn't A, know that his strength has changed. B, he's like a goddamn Saint Bernard puppy. He just woke up. He's not sure. And yet he didn't outright demolish her mortal form. Go fuck yourself. No.
Well, he almost demolished her mortal form, but then he didn't, because Sophia whispers into his ears those clunky fucking words that Ben said to her one day about
deceiving
dare
yourself
to
and
deceive
victimhood.
yourself that you're a victim. And Derek's like, I am a victim. You're right. And I shouldn't deceive myself. It was so stupid. It was so stupid. So then now he's done.
And now he wants to be monogamous with only her.
And yeah, now all of a sudden he's no longer hungry.
Hungry.
If I can imagine, Melody, you not eating for 400 years and waking
up. Don't imagine that. That is one of the scariest sentences you've ever said out loud.
I know. And I would imagine you less tame than this guy. I would imagine you.
I'm sorry. If I don't eat for 6 hours, I'm less tame than this motherfucker. Ugh.
Listener, Melody is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. But if you don't feed her like a gremlin for 3 hours, she becomes the meanest person you've ever met. Just personal attacks, baseless accusations.
The anger is real.
The worst thing you've ever thought about yourself, Melody will say to you in those moments.
Because I'm also rather intuitive. So it's a dangerous combination.
Right. Things about your childhood will just get gleaned by Melody and she'll bring them out. It's horrible.
But Derek is great. Derek is a superhero of anger and brightness.
So they begin to... So he wants her. He says, I want this one to be my personal slave. The sexiest words ever uttered. And then he says, do with the others what you will. Which is ridiculous to me, because if he's so turned on by her taking the hand of another one, and that's the thing that he's going to be like, oh, I love her because of that. Then he's just like, yeah, I want this one because she cares about the others. So make her my personal slave. Do whatever with the others.
Lucas,
kill him, fuck him, whatever you want to do.
My brother, who I know very well. The Predator.
Yeah. Ugh. He just has no give a shit for these other girls, but he loves Sophia because she has so much give a shit for these other girls. It makes no sense. So they begin to walk, and she's walking behind him as his personal slave. The others disappear into the night. And then he's like, you know what? Walk beside me. And then he takes her hand.
Rib from
and it's
my
just
rib.
It's so recent after he's just caused this head wound, and I don't know. And
meanwhile, she still smells like the tastiest morsel he's ever experienced in his whole life.
He doesn't smell that anymore, Melody. He loves her.
Okay, so then they start showing him what they've done
with the shade.
And they've realized all of his dreams because Derek has been the leader even while in Sleepy Town. And they take him to their personal penthouses where the elite live, and they are the kings of the elite, and it's the best. And they live in tree houses that are vampire kingdoms with full, I don't care. And Derek... Can
I say another logistical issue? A witch has obscured this island from the human world. A witch has banished the sun from this island. A witch has apparently helped in the creation of all of these structures and putting things into trees and all of this kind of stuff. And during this conversation, Derek says to Vivian, what's the wild animal problem like? And Vivian's like, yeah, it's really still an issue. We really can't get rid of those wild animals. And I was like, What?
That's something that actual cavemen got done. So I don't know why.
I am sitting in a house in Alaska, having banished the wild animals. I regularly see mooses and bears outside my window. And you know what? I'm good. It's okay. But for some reason,
Corinne
the witch, it's just like, fuck wolves. Like, I don't know what to do about that.
Those pesky goddamn bears.
I don't know. Unless that's maybe maybe
they're mystical wild animals.
Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe she's really talking about like a werewolf problem that we don't find out about until book 45. I don't know. But I thought that was really weird. Okay, so they're in the tree houses. Derek wants Sophia to sleep in her own room. All the others, I don't know where they are.
The room right beside his. That'll become important later.
So he throws her in there and she plans an escape. She looks through all the drawers. The drawers are just full of sexy. So she's in the evening gown, so she wants to change. Drawers are just full of sexy lingerie. They have nothing in there but sexy lingerie.
And little dresses, little sundresses.
Yeah, except for one hoodie, which is, again, never explained.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's one hoodie. And she's like, this seems really out of place. Anyway, I'll put it on. Puts on the hoodie, rips off her skirt. So she has a shorter skirt. She's in a tree house that's, thousands of miles in the air. Jumps out a window, climbs down a thing, finds an elevator, goes down the elevator. He doesn't lock her into this room, which is kind of crazy to me, but whatever.
It's also crazy to her.
Yeah, she does notice that. So
then she starts running for hours
through for hours
Apparently
through the brambles.
Hours. This not track athlete has been.
You're surprised
running,
but she's so thin.
4 hours.
She's so thin though now.
So then she comes into contact with these 2 guards, and they're like, you smell delicious. I'm going to eat you. And she's like, no.
Well, she hits a wall.
Yeah,
so, the shade is encased in a huge wall on an island. So there's no getting off this place. And yeah, these guards are going to eat her. And they're like, oh, you smell good because your blood's all over your legs because of all the brambles.
But don't worry, Derek shows up. And instead of being overpowered by the scent of her flowing blood, he musters the willpower to murderate the guards and bring him home.
He
bring her home?
He really fiercely murders one of these guards.
So
I don't remember.
Claws come out of his
rips
humanoid
fingers.
He
has Wolverine claws.
And he pulls out, all vampires do. They look like humans, and then all of a sudden, shink, their claws come out. Yeah, man.
That's not a thing.
That's a thing,
Mel.
bro.
That's not a thing.
Well, maybe I was Wolverining in my brain, but that's how I imagined it. So then he pulls out his beating heart, and then he leaves the other guard to tell the story because Sophia is going to be protected at all costs, even at the cost of vampire life, everyone.
Okay, I want to be clear. So the claws thing exists in this book, these vampires, but you've never seen that anywhere else, though, right? Like, that's what I was trying to say. This is not a thing.
Actually, there's a really, really good comic. It's called American Vampire, and it is so good. I would highly recommend it. It's written by the guy who wrote one of the most famous Batman series, but it's an indie comic about these vampires, and it goes through different timelines. It's fucking good. And part of the lore in that comic is that they vampires look like humans, and then they totally change form when they're about to attack. So it's really cool. Highly recommend. I'll put a link up to it.
They have claws,
including ginormous claws, and their faces get all fucked up because they almost get jokery with their teeth and their fangs, and they start looming in really, really crazy ways. I just did another dance.
God, sometimes I wish this was a video podcast, but just on your side, because I don't want anyone to see what I look like right now besides you. But God, that was good.
Anyway, American Vampire, hilarious. Highly recommend. Okay. Oh, and Stephen King was a writer on it. Insaney pants. The talent on the... Okay,
really?
We have to talk about this terrible book, Erin. Don't distract me.
So he murders the guard. She's all covered in blood. He doesn't give a shit that she's covered in blood, even though he still hasn't eaten, right?
Not to my knowledge. He may have had a glass of blood, perhaps.
You know what I like? So in the Southern vampire romance books, I don't know, my whole brain
novels?
is at 5 a.m. Yeah, Sookie Stackhouse books, which are not the most consent-y books in the world, but at least when Bill or Eric is hungered and Sookie is bleeding, they lick all the blood off of her in like a real gross way.
Yeah.
Every time Sookie is injured, Bill's like, do you mind if I lap that up? Like every single time. And all I could think was, she's just walking through the forest and he doesn't give a shit. Like,
especially
least,
since magic
slurp
saliva.
up some of that blood.
Because that's it. That's in this lore too, is that their saliva heals. Well, no, he makes her brush off with leaves or something. I don't remember, but he does. But only because she would be prey to every other vampire in the vicinity, and not the 400-year-old vampire who's specifically attuned to her blood and hasn't eaten much since he awoke. Okay, Ms. Forrest.
Right. So the next morning, she figures out that the sun doesn't rise here. Fine. He teaches her self-defense, teaches her how to wield a stake, which seems pretty self-explanatory to me, but she's dumb, so he has to really teach her, which is like a trust thing, and
it
I don't know.
It gives her the opportunity to see his rippling muscles without a shirt. And she's
because he has to show her exactly where you stab it,
and
like
she couldn't
exactly where to put the stake.
And it wouldn't make more sense to do that with a shirt on, because probably the next vampire she encountered would have a shirt on.
That's true.
If she were
true. I didn't even think about that.
It would make more sense if she wasn't like, I should go 6 inches down from his supple nipple, and instead, you're welcome, and instead had to figure her shit out like on a torso with a shirt on. Anyway, it would also make more sense if he had a lady vampire there so that he could show where to hit a lady vampire if he was so worried about the logistics of the bullshit, but no. The author just wanted him to be shirtless in front of her, and for her to see his rippling muscles, and for her to start getting tingles in her bathing suit parts that are very inappropriate and very Stockholm syndrome-y.
This guy was never, like, in some of these kinds of novels, like, at least he's described in a way sometimes that I'm like, oh, that's sexy.
Yeah.
I never even thought he was hot.
Totally.
Anyway, so they do that. She's like, hey, maybe you should teach the other girls self-defense too, so that, you know, they can defend themselves against vampires too. And he's
like, those bags of trash? Why would I do that?
Yeah. But he's also like, oh, Sophia, my sweet Sophia, like always caring about the other girls. I love her so much for that. But also, fuck off, Sophia, because...
yeah. So then at some point, does Gwen start crying through a wall? Is that where we are?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so a lot of things kind of happen in conglomeration here that I'm not really sure what happens first or second. Gwen's crying through a wall. She hears her. He hears Gwen crying through the wall too, but he doesn't give a fuck. So she goes and knocks on his door and asks if Gwen can sleep in her room with her. He's like, oh, Sophia, so sweet. But I heard Gwen crying too, and like, I didn't give a shit. But oh, Sophia. So he like gets, you know, and Gwen's like freaking out, which of course she is.
Because Gwen is the only relatable goddamn character in this book. I too would be having some breakdowns, especially if I had sensory issues. But okay, once again, Sophia's anxiety doesn't pop up at all. Sophia is good to go. So she comforts Gwen. Right. They hold each other. It's actually really, really sweet. Mm-hmm. And then they make breakfast together, and it's almost like two gals just hanging out.
Yeah, they make pancakes. It's still not confirmed whether or not Sophia eats those pancakes.
Probably not, because you have to keep that physique with a certain amount of caloric intake.
Right. Also around this time, we go to Derek's point of view, and Vivian has gifted him an unconscious woman to kill, and he's like,
"Yep,
good to go." Yep. He goes ahead and does that.
Well, she is a hunter.
Because she was a hunter of vampires. But he used to be a hunter of vampires before he got turned into a vampire. So fuck you, Derek.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because his mother was killed by vampires.
Yeah, the backstory here is his mother was murdered by vampires. So him and his brother Lucas, and probably not Vivian, but I don't know, became vampire hunters for a while.
Was Lucas involved, or was he just raping women with a flourish?
I don't know. It doesn't fucking matter. Then their dad comes back one day and turns all of them their dad's suddenly a vampire, and he turns them all into vampires. Their dad's, I think, evil, but he's absent from this book. So somewhere in here, she teaches him how to use a smartphone, which is supposed to be sweet. She teaches him how to use a television. They watch The Godfather, which, okay.
Oh, don't worry, guys. She tries to use the phone to call one number and one number only before she educates him. And I still don't know if it's a problem because witches or because because Ben is out of commission. I still don't know because she tries to call Ben. She doesn't call 911. She doesn't Google the number of the FBI. She doesn't do any of that. She calls.
Well, she says that there's no apps to do any Googling. It's like it's a phone that doesn't have a brand on it. That's just a very generic smartphone, and there's no apps on it.
Everything
because of witches. So during the smartphone thing, he's like, "Oh, what is this contraption?" And you've been asleep for 400 years. A lot has happened since the 17th century. You're telling me you go to sleep in 1615 or whatever. You wake up in 2015 and you're not like, what's underwear? Why are these women dressed this way? He goes up to the refrigerator. He says, this must be a cooling machine. I'm sorry, Derek. What's a machine?
Yep.
What is it? It's because I'm pretty sure a wheel and an axle is the only one you know about. Sorry.
Yeah, what's this mystical box that is the TV? He's fine with that. He's just like, oh, DVDs? Yeah, I'll put them in here. I'm just going to put them in upside down because I'm so hokey and cute. Oh, Derek, Sophia says. And she's like, I'm on a date with a vampire. It's weird, but I like it. And the girls hover over her for a minute, but then they're like, you know what? He hasn't eaten her yet. I guess she's cool. And they just fuck off to another part of the tree penthouse.
Yeah. She, around this time, also asks Vivian if she can have a room that she can decorate herself, which ends up being
a sunroom, because apparently she's a secret world-class muralist.
Well, no, not because Sophia Claremont is secretly an artist. It's because Bella Forrest, not her name, watched season whatever of True Blood, the television show, in 2015, when Queen Sophie, which is also the name of the person in the book, has the day room, which I don't remember from the book, but it's been so long since I've read those.
Same.
That may have existed in the book as well.
But either way,
but this was a complete description of the show.
Yes, and not to mention the fact that that's exactly what I thought of when they took her down to the spa. It was the day room.
Yep.
It was Queen Sophie's day room. Okay. It just didn't have the fucking Yahtzee board. Okay.
Right, but everything else it had. Mm-hmm. And also around this time, a guard tells Sophia.
Now you're not sure.
Now I'm not sure because we talked about Queen Sophie. It was one of my favorite characters.
Mine
we
too.
need to read those sometime too. Tell Sophia how important Derek is and that he's like the king of everything and he's the most powerful vampire in the world. And instead of being like, fuck, I'm being held captive by the king who is the most powerful. Like, oh no, I'm never getting out of here, which would have been my reaction. She's like, he is.
Oh.
Like, and he likes me.
I feel so
and like I'm the one who's like his personal slave.
This special man.
Oh my god.
Wants to only slave with me. Ooh.
All right.
Oh.
So.
Oh, and P.S. She doesn't create this goddamn sunroom because she misses the sun. She creates this goddamn sunroom because Derek says he misses the sun. I cannot and I will not. I can't and I won't.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so then throughout all of this, P.S., Derek has been subtly watching Lucas, not so subtly, terrorize Sophia on the daily. He admits through his perspective that he notices Lucas going up to her and being like, you're a tasty morsel and I'm gonna fuck you and then I'm gonna eat you. And he's just like, that seems cool. And then Lucas will walk by again and be like, remember that time that I almost raped you? Don't worry, it's gonna happen. And Derek's like, wow, Sophia, when she is terrified, she gets a glow in her cheeks.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
And he's totally cool with this because he can't say anything because this monster is his brother. And like family goes before law and
family first.
And any kind of goodness in this world. Oh.
Yeah, which brings me to Gwen. So
that's right. Poor Gwen.
One night.
Gwen gets refrigerated.
So one night.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was a comic term from an Arrow storyline a long time ago where
oh, please explain.
I know, in order for, I think it was Arrow. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I'm pretty sure it was. In order to give the male character some depth, Like the story is a villain murders his girlfriend and shoves her into a refrigerator for the hero to find. And so it's become this term in the comic lexicon, like in a don't treat ladies like that. It's like, stop it. Women are people and not objects to give heroes some backstory. You know what I mean? So poor Gwen, she gets refrigerated by Lucas.
So Derek hears...
No, Derek doesn't hear anything. Derek goes in to check on...
Maybe he just goes in to say good morning to Sophia. And he finds her all cowering in the corner.
Covered in blood.
Now she's having some kind of panic. Yeah, she's covered in blood. She's freaking out. He goes into the bathroom, finds Gwen sucked dry in the bathtub. He takes Sophia and runs her to Corinne, the witch.
Who is also, she has a psychology background, everyone. Don't worry. She has a partial BA in psych. So she's ready for the intake session.
Wait.
She's ready to diagnose what no other medical professional has been able to diagnose yet. Because witches.
No, not even because witches. I wish it was because witches, but no, it's because BA in psychology. Okay.
I'm sorry, partial BA, because let's recall, Corinne was also...
She didn't graduate.
She was also kidnapped. But not against her will?
We'll get to that in a sec. No, just let's do Gwen first.
Right, sorry. So Gwen... Throughout the night, without waking Sophia at all, he takes Gwen out of bed where she's snuggling.
Wait, Lucas went in.
Sorry, yes.
Lucas went into the room.
The actual villain, not the partial villain. Mm-hmm. He takes Gwen out of Sophia's bed, and they've been sleeping in each other's embrace because it's the only comfort they've had for, months or weeks. I don't know how long they've been there.
I think it's months.
So... yeah. He takes her out. He takes her into the bathroom, and without making a sound, he drains her completely, leaves her in a puddle of blood, and then he mounts Sophia and, threatens her all over again, except with more physical contact and terror. And does he bite her? I don't think he bites her yet.
No, he claws her.
That's right. He claws her entire back, like in the show.
Just like
True
fucking
Blood.
Sookie fucking Stackhouse. Like I'm just
when she gets hit by the Maven. No, what's she called? The Maenad. The
Maenad. Was that the Maenad?
Yes, it was the Maenad.
I don't know. I that whole scene I don't think
it was the Maenad. Everyone.
The books. I mean, the doctor is, but the.
Yeah, the claws
I don't
down
remember
the back,
what scratched her.
It was the Maenad.
Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot. I really like that doctor character, though.
Me
she
too.
was more instrumental in the books, and I was really happy she materialized
bitch.
a little bit in the show.
Yeah, she's a badass.
Yeah, they got the perfect actress to play. Anyway.
So she's covered in blood. Meanwhile, Derek doesn't know this, even though she's bleeding profusely. Derek is so concerned with her emotional well-being, that he doesn't notice she's totally scratched up. He takes her to Corinne. Corinne is like, why don't you leave her with me? And he's like, I could never leave her with you. She's like, get the fuck out because she's terrified of you too. And he's like, So once the witch becomes involved, then she's fine again. And she comes out and she's like, he's like, who did this to you? And she's like, I'll never tell. But I also want a big giant hug.
Yeah, Lucas said, don't tell or else I'm going to murder you dead like Gwen.
And he said, I'll murder the rest of the harem too.
Oh, yeah, the rest of them, yeah.
And Sophia does have a protective quality about her that I appreciate. But she uses that opportunity to snuggle up to Derek, and he doesn't mind that at all.
And he's so cold.
And then he's
like monstrous and like...
He's like, so for your own protection, I think that you should sleep in my bed. And she's like,
gross.
Oh, really? Me? You want to slave only with me at night too? Wow. And so they start sleeping in the same bed, not doing anything again, which thank the whoever high atop the thing. There was no sexy time in this fucking book. But then she starts going down and seeing Corinne once a week for her personal therapy sessions. And Corinne diagnoses her with this thing where she can't turn off her senses like other people can. And so there's always too much input. And that's what makes her the specialist of special ladies.
Right.
And
it's a disease. And I Wikipedia'd this thing. It's called LLI. And it's a thing that's not necessarily like, I don't want to say not real, because I'm sure it's real, but it's kind of I don't know how to say it,
I guess.
Yeah, but it did say that if you're smart enough, you can control it. Like, that's actually the real thing on the Wikipedia page, which I assume is the extent of the research done by Bella.
Because it literally says that in the book. So I think she may have just copied and pasted the Wikipedia page. Sorry, Ms. Forrest.
Right. Can I just say, I'm scrolling through my notes a little bit here on my Kindle, and I highlighted the quote from Derek that says, "Sophia's going to be fine. Corinne was in her senior year of psychology when we dragged her down here. She'll know how to help Sophia." It's like, Jesus Christ. So Corinne, they talked to her about like being here against her will. And Corinne says something about being here against her will. Derek is like, what? Like, Cora wasn't here against her will, the witch that I knew 400 years ago. And I think he may have had some kind of love connection with Cora, the original witch, because he seems to be really into her when he talks about her.
Only his penis could have seduced her into being their personal witch. That's the impression.
Then Cora, the original one.
Yeah.
And so he's like, Corinne, I didn't realize that we had you imprisoned here. And even though the whole balance of the shade is held together by Corinne being there, he's like, Corinne, you can go. Like, you want to leave? You can go.
This is the one time where slavery is not palatable to Derek. The rest of it.
The one time.
The thousands of humans that are in the catacombs and being beaten on the streets, and also his personal slave, who he likes to think of as his girlfriend. All of that, totally cool. But the one person that is pivotal to the safety of his race, he's like, we would never. And she's like, I know. I wanted to be here anyway. I'm like powerful enough that I could leave anytime I wanted. And he's like, I also knew that. So it wasn't an actual offer. She's like, because he knew that she wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And Vivian's like, you could leave? And she's like, duh, bitch. I'm so powerful because witches.
I am a witch. Yeah, because witches. Okay, so that happens. Then she starts sleeping in his bed.
Can we fast forward?
Oh, I want to say another thing about slavery.
All right.
I know, but we're almost to the end here. Just really quick, because this is what I was talking to you about at 3 a.m. the other night. It's like, Lucas is supposed to be the villain here because he keeps eating and raping women, which, yeah, I get it. That's villainy. That's a villain behavior. Yeah. But like, who's worse? Lucas, who just runs around munching on some slaves, or Derek, who is apparently in charge of this whole operation where there are hundreds of human slaves like chained up in the catacombs, and he can apparently end this whole thing
immediately with
and
one
he's just
word.
Like, yeah, he could just be like, release them all,
and they have to do
Corinne and Sophia. Like, yeah, and they would have to do it. He constantly like watches the suffering of his harem, 7 of which he does not give a shit about. He could just, and he's like, I can't release them because the rules are that they've seen too much. No, you make the rules. You're the fucking king or whatever.
He's just as bad. He's just as bad. I mean, it worse. I don't.
He's
no,
worse.
It's the worst.
He's worse.
It's the worst. The whole thing is the worst. Okay, so.
All right, so then the next thing that happens, so they're sleeping together. She's like, you are starting to feel like home to me, which is gross.
She's getting deep in that Stockholm syndrome, and he is loving every minute. But then she's in the day room one day. Oh, no. And then he gets a visitor. And the visitor has Ben. And Sophia sees this and she's like, Ben, because apparently he was also kidnapped. And when she called his phone, it was disconnected because he was kidnapped. And she, once again, didn't call the FBI.
So Derek, because he's the king of everything, is just like,
I want that.
Hey, I've noticed that my slave likes your slave and I like my slave. So would you mind just giving me your slave? And Claudia's like, no, I like my slave.
And he's like, but
and Derek's
really,
like, I'm your king or whatever. yeah, give me your slave. And so she's like, here you go.
Yep. So then we learn that Ben has been incredibly abused, like all other slaves. He's been tortured. He's been probably made to do a lot of rapey stuff. He tried to escape. Yeah. He gets like severely beaten and tortured to the point that his beautiful body is now marred with scars. And he's like, I hate all of them. And she's like, but not Derek. And he's like, you're a crazy fucking face and you need to chill your shit out. And she's like, but also Derek. And they find the sunroom. And, I'm sorry. Then Derek gets really jealous and he attacks her because that is cool to do. And then he feels really bad because that is the abuse cycle.
I have the same thing written right here. He's jealous of Ben, but what he does is he accuses her of sleeping with Lucas.
Yeah.
Which he knows is not true. He knows Lucas is like
a predator.
Predatoring on her. Mm-hmm. While he doesn't know that Lucas was necessarily the one that went in and killed Gwen.
Oh, he is 89% sure it was Lucas. And he's like, but I can't do anything.
He's sure it was Lucas.
Because it's my brother.
Yeah. Because he has these thoughts. It's like, I don't know who this was, but like it was probably definitely Lucas. And then he's like, are you sleeping with Lucas? Has something been going on between you and Lucas? And she's like, what? No. And then he feels really bad.
No, and meanwhile, he does this after throwing her on the bed and jumping on top of her and being really scary town and hurting her back again and doing all the things. And so then he leaves because he's horrified with himself and he's probably going to get her flowers because once again, this is the cycle of abuse.
What I have written here, he says, from the moment I left Sophia trembling in my bed, from fear, the moment I left Sophia trembling in my bed, I'd done nothing but chastise myself for my behavior.
What a good guy.
I couldn't breathe. Yeah. I've actually accused her of being with Lucas, whom I was certain had been tormenting her for the past weeks, all out of my jealousy over this friend of hers. And I wrote, this is the cycle of abuse.
Okay. So then Sophia goes to the day room where she sees Ben. And Ben's like, we got to get the fuck out of Dodge. And Sophia's like, it's not possible. But also, Derek's not that bad.
And Ben's like, are you fucking kidding me? Derek's not that bad. We need to get out of here. You have Stockholm syndrome. Right. And she's like, but Derek, even though he just attacked her.
Just minutes ago. So then enter Lucas. Lucas is ready to take his rapey self to Eating Town. And he throws Ben against the wall and knocks him out. And then he starts ravishing Sophia in a really, really scary, rapey, awful sexual assault kind of way. He strips, like it's really yuck.
Yeah, she ends up naked from the waist up against a wall.
I think he's
like it's pretty bad.
Her. He's probably scratched her up quite a bit because of his claws. And Derek enters and throws Lucas out, and Lucas runs away because he's a coward, which, you know, most sexual predators are. And Sophia's like, thank you so much, you're my hero. And he's like, did he? And she's like, no, my virginity is intact. I'm still waiting for you, don't worry. So then Ben wakes up and Derek is like, you got to get out of here. You have to take her. You have to go. And she's like, can I take the rest of the harem who are my friends, who I love, and I would like to free? And he's like, bitch, please.
No.
Again, bags of trash. So he walks them out and takes them through the secret passages, which she knows, and this is the only other time that her goddamn situation comes up, is that he knows that because of her heightened senses, she will remember all of this, because apparently in Bella Forrest land, heightened senses also means incredibly keen memory that never gets fucked up. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then they're on the dock and she's like, I don't...
Also, wait. I'm sorry. I interrupted you in a bad part, but like, it just occurred to me, can't he just wipe her memory because witches?
Oh man, I never even... He could free all of them and wipe their memory.
He could free...
Because witches.
All of them. Because witches. Anyway, so whatever.
Oh, I'm so extra mad now, Erin. You did that to both of us, and I'm really mad.
Me too. That's why I'm sorry. And I know you were really in your groove when I interrupted you, but it hit me like a lightning bolt. So then they
go out to the dock, and he's like, bye, I love you, bye. And she's like, I don't want to part like this. You're being so cold, vampire. You're being so cold. You're being so cruel. How could you do this? And he's like, because I love you, and I can't handle it if we're not together. And she's like, me too. And then they kiss, and Ben is just shuddering from head to toe because he's so grossed out at his best friend, and I don't blame him. And then Vivian wakes up because premonitions, and she's like, it happened. They kissed. The future is now gonna come to pass, and all of the things, we don't know what's gonna happen, but it's gonna be good, and it's gonna be sexy, and it's going to impact the future of our vampire race just because of that fateful kiss, and I wanted to murder everyone. The end. Is that about right?
She had a premonition of 46 more books is what happened. She woke up and she was like even the idea of a 47 book series just blows my mind. Can you imagine writing 47 of these?
I cannot imagine being stuck in this universe for 47 books.
I was reading the Goodreads reviews, and there are a lot of teenage girls that have read all 47 of these and are just like hungry for more.
Because cycle of abuse.
They're also hungry because they haven't eaten in months because they just want to be just like.
Grab a quesadilla, ladies. Just give in. Just feed yourself.
grab a quesadilla.
Okay, so what's your lady love recommendation?
So
because we need some lady love.
Oh, it's not really lady love, but it's something that I wanted to share. Wait, let's do yours first because I gotta find
mine. Is the general description of mine is watch something where badass women in real life are just being talented and fierce and amazing on television or on the big screen. Find something, because man,
what did you watch, Melody?
I watched Big Little Lies again. Nicole Kidman, Reese Witherspoon, Shania Woody. Shania Woody. Plus some really, really excellent, Laura Dern is in it. There's a lot of domestic violence through plot and a lot of things that are shown on the screen. So if that is triggering for you, be careful.
Also, don't listen to the rest of this podcast.
Right.
Go back in time.
We should probably, I'll add that to the who knows. So it's amazing, the things that these women do with just their eyes. The cinematography is beautiful, and you have to actually watch. You can't just like put this on in the background and think you're going to get the whole story, because they do a lot of cutaways to past scenes, and it's so quick and it's so sharp, and it just shows so many levels of the human experience that is just watch it. I also really have been loving Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder. If you're in the mood for that type of lady amazingness and you don't mind, like, just don't pay attention to the plot and then you'll be fine.
Right. And you can suspend disbelief for all human behavior.
Right. You'll still get to see a lot of ladies being fucking badass. So fill your life with women being creative and totally talented. And also men. I mean
I'm one of the last.
There's some really talented dudes. I just
mostly women. I'm one of the last Grey's Anatomy holdouts, so I understand.
Yep, good. No, do you? I support that.
I don't listen. The problem is this. Listen, when you have invested a decade of your life into something, it's hard. It's kind of like Scientology. Grey's Anatomy is the same as Scientology. Like, you've given too much money, and like by the time it starts getting like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. This is bad for me. It's like you've invested too much time. If you back out now, then you are a fool, So you just have to double down on it.
Yeah, I backed out at ghost sex. So I was early.
That was early. God, you don't even know. Okay. So my thing is this, and I don't know that it's a lady love thing, but I was reading this book on a plane this week because I was on so many planes this week. And early in the flight, the guy sitting next to me had stepped on my headphones, and it was a 6-hour flight. And I was just like, you stepped on my fucking headphones. And then he had
Did he offer you his?
No, it's fine. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but we were in first class, so we got headphones. It was fine.
Oh.
So, but, these are my headphones, and he broke them by accident. But then I'm reading this shade of vampire bullshit, and he has the gall to, like, look over my shoulder and, like, give me a look, like, And I was like, you know what? Dick, you stepped on my headphones, so I'm forced to read this dribble. And like, don't judge me for reading whatever the fuck I want to read. Because while we didn't like this book, we support you if you do like this book.
That's right.
Like, read whatever the fuck you want to read. And it pissed me off. And it made me think of a podcast by The Ringer called Binge Mode, which was, did you listen to that podcast?
No.
It was two friends that they went back before this last season of Game of Thrones. They went back and watched all the episodes of Game of Thrones, did recaps. And then they did this season and now it's done. The whole idea was they were going to binge watch the whole thing and then watch this season. So the last episode of this podcast that they did. So if you're going to listen to this thing, it's at the tail end of the last episode. It's the last 12 minutes of the last episode. The male co-host, who is Jason Concepcion, starts talking about how people get embarrassed about the magic and dragons element of Game of Thrones, and people get embarrassed about fantasy things and say like they're just for kids. Like people still get made fun of for like being into things like
that blows my mind.
Magic and dragons.
I mean, maybe because
and,
I live in this bubble where my husband owns a comic shop, but geek culture is so prevalent. It's so pervasive. It's so awesomely out there now. Mm-hmm. I don't get it.
Right. But it's still like, you know, if you're reading a vampire book, the guy next to you on a plane might give you a dirty look.
Yeah.
So
your fantasy flag, everyone.
Yeah. He writes the most beautiful, like 5-minute oration about why fantasy is important and why escapism is important. And it's centered around Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. But I assume our Venn diagram of anyone listening to this is probably somewhere in that circle. And it is just beautiful. And I won't try to talk about it because he said it so eloquently, but it's really, really good. It's the last 10 minutes of the last episode of Binge Mode by The Ringer. And then after he does his little oration about fantasy, then him and his co-host Mallory just talk about their friendship for a good 10 minutes. And they both cry about how much they love each other. And how much they've enjoyed doing this podcast, and they both just like break down in tears. And just like, I love you too.
You know that
so
hits
even
me
though
where
you
I
haven't,
live.
I know.
I dig that.
So even if you haven't listened to the podcast, it's kind of heartwarming to hear them just be like, I have just really loved doing this with you. So anyway.
Well, and I think that really cross applies to not just fantasy, but also romance. I mean,
I think so too. That's why I was saying it here.
Yeah. This is a genre that gets shit on in the general cultural lexicon all the time, and it's not cool because it is an escape. It is a place where you can safely explore different relationships, different relational, organization. I mean, just the human reaction in general and what you think is appropriate or not, or realistic or not. And it's, I don't know.
It can be important too. We got an email about somebody who had started reading romance novels when she was 11, and she talked about how like she went into her adult sex life knowing more about what she liked and consent and what she wanted and that kind of thing.
The fact that women should get pleasure out of sex is something she knew before she even hit puberty, and that is so important. Pivotal. I mean, it's pivotal to a healthy sex life going forward. And I think too many women are ashamed of their wants. They're ashamed of their fantasies. They're ashamed of even thinking that they should get pleasure out of the experience. I think still to this day, there are way too many women who are like, lay back and think of England. And this is a genre that more often than not, at least nowadays, puts the emphasis on effort into female sexual gratification. And it's huge.
Yeah. So I guess my lady love thing is don't be embarrassed by what you read. Yeah. And if you want to hear a heartwarming oration about not being embarrassed by what you read and why it's important to have fantasy and important to have escapism, listen to the last 10 minutes of that podcast.
I love that. Okay, everyone. Yep. Follow us on Instagram at Heaving Bosoms. Send us an email at heavingbosoms@gmail.com. Please subscribe. Please rate and review us. We now have enough reviews to actually have an average on there, and to hit the new and noteworthy, we need more reviews. So please go and just take the couple of minutes that it's going to take to tell everyone what you think of the podcast and what you think they might like or dislike about it. Next week, we're going to be switching genres completely. We're going to be going historical, and we
are going to be laying back and thinking of England, but in a sexy way.
In a super sexy way. Spoiler alert, we loved the next book. So if you're sick of us being on soapboxes, why don't you tune in next week?
All right. So keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love sexy teenage Stockholm syndrome.
Get it. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Right. Bye, Mel.
Bye, Aaron. Hey, you. Yes, listener, you. Are you loving the show? If so, please leave a rating and review in your podcast app. The 90 seconds you take to say something nice not only helps new people find the show, but it makes me super smile over at HBHQ. Also, I've had a few people ask, and the answer is yes. We are still doing the 5-star bribe. If you leave us a review with 5 stars, then we'll do whatever book you want. We're real deep into the list, though, so it might be a while. Lilas! Okay, back to the show.